It could be that you're afraid that there's going to be a threat to you or your job or something like that. Or it could be both. When you've got both, the insecurities, yeah, the insecurities. So when you've got both, it's even tougher, right? Because then there's even more resistance. So I always say, if something is bothering me, is it because I'm anxious about my ability to deal with it, or is it because I'm anxious about the uncertainty of somebody else and what they're going to do to something?
Hi there, Adrian here, and this is a video from a Zoom session that we do. We do these Zoom sessions every Sunday and we take questions and answers from the audience, some of our students, some of our members. We never know what questions are coming up, so I'm always excited to do these sessions and I hope to see you at one of them. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and check out the other playlists that we have. Thank you, enjoy.
Insecurity is any kind of uncertainty or anxiety that you usually have about yourself. And this could be how you're going to handle it. So, for example, Elaine, I'm not sure about the situation exactly of what you're going through, but it could be one of these two insecurities. It could be that you might feel uncertainty that you don't know if you can handle the new changes with these new investors, or it could be that you're afraid that there's going to be a threat to you or your job or something like that. Or it could be both. When you've got both, the insecurities, yeah, the insecurities. So when you've got both, it's even tougher, right? Because then there's even more resistance. So I always say, if something is bothering me, is it because I'm anxious about my ability to deal with it, or is it because I'm anxious about the uncertainty of somebody else and what they're going to do to something? Right? They go together, but these are the two main things. And then this leads to a lot of resistance. And then this can lead to your mental insecurities, right? Maybe you don't think you're smart enough. Maybe you don't think you know enough. Maybe you don't think that you have a good enough personality or your identity isn't aligned enough. Ego, you could really be pride, right? You could be afraid of losing face. You could be afraid of how you're going to be turned away by other people. This is a very big one, by the way, because if you look at the baseline fears and all the studies, rejection, being rejected by a group is a very, very deep, deep fear. It's actually almost close to death because we are hardwired to have connections and socially belong, because millions of years ago with our ancestors, the only way you survived not being eaten by like some kind of really big animal was to be in a tribe. So our DNA has wired us to fit into social groups so that we can survive. So if you are rejected by a social group, it literally triggers some of the same neural responses as if you are in danger of getting killed. This is why we cannot underestimate when we have children who are rejected in school by peer groups. And we also have to understand that this is one of the reasons why public speaking is more feared than death. Okay, so hopefully that helps. And then lastly, creative. Maybe you don't feel like you're creative enough. Maybe your insecurity, you don't have enough imagination. These are all insecurities that rear their ugly heads. This can lead to imposter syndrome, which is where you feel like you're not good enough. You're an imposter trying to do something. You will start to avoid challenges, and you will actually start to not want to share ideas. You can share ideas, but obviously you have to be smart about it, but you might be scared to share any ideas with anybody. That's when you know that you have gone from insecurity to a more deep mental insecurity, and now this is how it's showing up. So all of these are layers, right? But at the basis of all of these things, there's something underneath, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, job, same thing. Maybe you're afraid that your performance isn't good enough. You're afraid you might lose your job. You might feel like you're not qualified or you're not good enough in your workplace. You might be afraid that your social media results aren't good enough. You don't have enough followers. You don't have enough engagement. This is a big thing now. You might be afraid that you're not as far as where you should be as an entrepreneur. You might be afraid of your professional reputation. These are all professional insecurities. And when those happen, you will actually start underperforming. You will start limiting your career choices. You will have poor workplace relationships. And again, you'll be stuck with imposter syndrome. It happens with mental and professional insecurities. So this is, again, how those insecurities manifest in your life, right? So here's causes. Somebody said past experiences. Yes, negative experiences for sure. Feedback, failure, patterns, negative patterns you've had. Trauma is a big one. A lot of people are talking about that these days, especially with COVID. Brought it out a lot for people because some of our most basic fears were triggered by the things that happened. Childhood attachments. If you had a tough time with your child, I mean, I'm sure that this is something that Darko can probably help you with. Childhood attachments and things like that, the way that you had with when you were a child, how you were with your parents. Did they have a divorce? Were they good? Were they separate? Low self-esteem. If you're not loving yourself, you're more likely to be insecure. If you don't have the skills to do what you need to do, you're obviously going to feel insecure. In that case, you're easily going to feel like an imposter because if you don't have the skills, you kind of are until you upskill. And so that is a really, really rough situation. A lot of times, professionals feel stressed when they're asked to do something in their workplace that they have never had training on. They don't have the skills. And of course, you're going to feel insecure. You're going to question whether or not you can handle that situation. There's also perfectionism, which we talked about before, because you're never going to reach it. It's perfect is a myth. Negative beliefs, having beliefs, glass half empty. There's also cognitive biases that you can put in, but limiting beliefs, all of these things. Again, we talked about the environment and social comparison. This is a big one. The Facebook effect. This is actually a thing. You go on Facebook, you see people are positive, and you're like, oh, why don't I have that? And you compare yourself. That's social comparison. This is a big one. These all cause insecurities. And what is the cause of the insecurities? So this is the wheel. Now, what I want to show you is I show this wheel, but I always explain that I disagree with it a little bit because you've got tired, stressed, busy, bored. You see this bad? Let's face it. This is resistance right here. It's resistance. You've got fear, you've got anger. But why do we get angry? We get angry because we're afraid of losing something or losing control. It's a fear. If we disapprove, we're disappointed. It comes from fear. So half of the bad negative things here are really actually coming from fear. The emotions that I tell people that you have is you've got grief, which is natural, right? So I had mentioned before that I have a death that happened in my family and I'm still grieving. That is natural. It's natural to feel negative after that. That is a natural part of the whatever. But any other negative feeling or emotion you have, it comes from fear. And you can throw any emotion at me right now that's negative except for grieving, like which would involve sadness, of course. And I can tell you how it's related to a fear. So you've got love, fear, and grief. All your stuff is coming from those three. If you really want to get at the root, fear's at the root of the negativity. And that's the root of all the insecurities. So here we go. You get back here, you got fear, and then it goes to your negative base emotion. So whether that's anxiety or anger, gets you a more specific negative emotion. So, maybe you're feeling a certain kind of tension, and then it leads to your behavior.
Boom! You made it here! Good on you. Make sure you click the subscribe button below and check out the playlist at the end. If you'd like to come along to our Sunday sessions where we host a live, free Q&A for our students and members, you're welcome. I'll see you there.